Welcome to the Nuclear Snell channel. This episode is about the concept arts I did for Wasteland 3. Some of you have already seen some of them, and now there is a bunch more that I can now show you and talk about in all the creative post-apocalyptic detail. I think this video will be very interesting both for people who do digital art but have never made a physical artwork such as a costume or a prop. My physical experience helped me a lot in creating these digital concept arts. And I also think it will be interesting for those who do costuming, because as I say all the time, the rules of design apply to anything you design, and I will be talking a lot about design this time. Also, just for fun, I will be analyzing my own work in terms of how well it would work as an actual costume, and how well it would work quote-unquote in the real apocalypse. The latter point being obviously just for fun, because obviously for most designs, especially for computer games, the rule of cool wins and realism just takes a back seat. And also in the real apocalypse, everyone would just be dead. So I'm really happy this didn't happen, and hopefully it doesn't happen so I can talk about post-apocalyptic art instead, okay? So, realism is however still a useful tool to make your work more believable, and I actually made a whole video about the role of realism for artworks. But to recap the core of it, yes, realism helps making believable art, but it's by far not the only thing that's important. Much more important is how consistent a given artwork is to the world it's supposed to be in. How authentic is it to that world, not to ours? And also, of course, it's important how interesting is that artwork in general. Now, for me, this concept art job was amazing for multiple reasons, mostly two. First, I'm a huge fan of the Wasteland brand and the people who have created it, so honestly, being in the credits on this, I can't even say it was ever on my bucket list, because I just never thought this was possible. Ever, but here I am. So I would like to briefly thank everyone at Inxile Entertainment, and especially of course the people who were directly involved in the decision of giving me the opportunity to do this awesome concept art job, and most of all Aaron Myers, the art director of Inxile. Thanks so much for being not just an awesome art director, but also a really fun, chill, professional dude to work with, and for believing in me even on occasions where I myself didn't. So I don't know what else to say, man. It was amazing. Thank you, everyone. Second reason why this job was awesome. It allowed me to, at the same time, use my experience I gathered doing all the costumes I do, and also to try out crazy things that are just too impractical or too dangerous or too expensive or otherwise not viable to do in a real costume. So this was kind of a crazy playground for me when I can try a bunch of cool new things, which I usually don't do, but wanted to try creating for a while, be it digital or physical or whichever way. So here they are. So stick around and let's hope it's gonna be informative and entertaining for you. I will be focusing mostly on the actual design behind these arts, rather than the technical stuff, such as which programs did I use or whether or not I used photo bashing. I will address these less important questions just to get them out of the way and just so you don't ask, and I will do so right now. So the way I did this was, first I created those 3D models in Blender, and then I've added some basic texture to the models, rendered them out, and then proceeded to texturize them using some more photo textures in Photoshop, and I also added some final details to it in Photoshop. So this is how this one came out of Blender, and this is how it came out of Photoshop when I was done with it. So really at some point it's just a decision like, okay, which kind of details are faster to just add in Photoshop instead of continuing modeling, and which are better done in 3D. Don't get hung up on specific programs, like whichever programs work for you, that works for you. One thing that I didn't do a lot here, maybe with the exception of a belt or so here and there, so like really small details, I didn't photo bash from my existing older costuming work photos. I felt like that would stand in the way of me creating something new and interesting that would also surprise me and make me go like, yeah, I tried out something else that I don't usually do here. So without making this video like super long, there is no way I can talk about all of them in detail. Instead, I will be jumping from this to that because a lot of ideas stretch across designs such as material contrast, color contrasts, other design principles that I would like to talk about. So it also doesn't make any sense for me to just go through each one of them. Like in this video we do the first 5 and the next we do the next 5 or whatever. There might, by the way, be a part 2 or even 3 of this video, depending on how far we get, and if I feel like there is more left to talk about after this one or not. But anyway, let's just dive into it and see what we can learn. So the first thing I would like to start with are these skill-based costumes here, the mechanic, the medic, and while a radio person was not a skill in the game, it's still kind of a role-specific, let's call it that. And these are some of my favorite ones of this series because, well, they specify a role, they give characterization to the character. So if a player is having a dedicated character who is like a doctor, they can just have them wear this throughout the whole game, or a mechanic would be wearing this, and so on. It is just more interesting, in my opinion, than, you know, your basic guy like this or this. I mean, these also look cool, but these look like your more generic, I'm not saying completely generic, but a more generic ranger, while this looks like the radio ranger. He has the backpack, you know, he has the retro army radio backpack and this big thing right here in the front, whatever it's called, the hand piece of it. Same applies for the medic here, a large bag in the proper colors with a decal and a large power supply for the defibrillator in the front. Now, I'm not a medical person whatsoever, but to my limited amount of medical knowledge, a defibrillator on the battlefield doesn't make that much sense, and especially carrying it like this in the open, this would not do it any favors, you know. If we're talking realism, then this medic person would probably not be having this at all, and if they had it, they would have it stashed away in the backpack or somewhere else safe, and they would also not be carrying bandages like this. And this mechanic person would also probably not be carrying all of their tools completely open like this. It makes much more sense for the radio guy to wear his rig like this. I mean, rigs that are worn on the back did exist historically, or they probably still do, and this is making much more sense to wear it like this than the other two, especially than the medic. But my point here is, and this is my main advice for anyone trying to create a character, be it digital or costuming or whatever, that is trade skill focused or role specific, is wear the stuff that defines your character's role openly. Even if it doesn't make too much sense practically or realistically, still wearing your story open lets other people read your story. That makes sense if you think about it, but so many times I'll see designs where people are like, okay, this is a backpack and like there is a medic symbol on it, but everything else, like all the tools of the medic, are just inside that backpack. I mean, that's what you do realistically, right? But no, you need to tell your stories in the open. And also look at these designs, how much space the trade skill specific gear is taking up. It's a lot of space, right? Like all of this stuff, it's all trade skill based or role based. So there is a lot of surface. So number one, wear your stories open, and number two, have your trade skill stuff take up a lot of space, relatively speaking. Let's do this guy for fun. So Aaron, the art director, and I were joking, like, in the game it would be fun, they didn't implement it of course, but it would have been fun if there was a feature where a beefy ranger, like a really muscular one, picks up this dude and chucks him back first into the enemy, thus killing the enemy. Super deadly. And needless to say, I would like doing a real costume like this, like absolutely no. Only maybe with foam knives on the back. Otherwise it's just super dangerous and really this would be very, very uncomfortable. Like imagine sitting down in a car with this. You would just get stuck with this all the time. Also, if someone kicked this guy against a tree, he would just get stuck in the tree and not get out. But it just looks so ridiculously over the top, like sort of a knife dinosaur kind of thing. I just wanted to do something that's super over the top like this. And while he doesn't have a specific trade skill going on with him, I still did invest some thought into the design of his gear. Like, what kind of a person would that be? Well, to me it looks like a brawler kind of person, because first of all, this football gear, it always looks like some sort of a very physical person, and we also have, to complement that, we also have these sport gloves right here, and to make it abundantly clear that these are also like based on sport gloves or modified spiked sport gloves, I just wrote sport onto them, using these sporty colors like you would see on a lot of sport things. You have bright colors like this. So I wanted to drive this point home, and this is like a small echo of the main design which is going on the shoulders here, which is, I think, interesting. Echoes are a thing in general. You will find an echo here, by the way, too. We have some on the torso and on the back. I'm talking about those metal plates. And we also have some on this forearm, so that's an echo as well. Anyway, back to this dude. He's a gentleman. He has a large spoon for eating, and he has a small spoon for drinking tea. And right here it says tea time. He loves tea, and he has an aluminum canister like this for cooking tea or whatever, and he also has on the other side to balance it out visually. So here we have this very specific thing, and on the other side we have something entirely different to balance it out, 3 bags like this. And you will notice he also has marked this one with the medicine symbol from the game, which the medic has on their backpack. And this is a big medic backpack, while this dude just carries, like, you know, a tiny bit, maybe like there is a bandage in there or whatever. But anyway, he likes drinking tea, he likes eating food, he likes hitting people in the face, probably. And overall, I like this design because it's just so over the top regarding these knives here. When I was designing this, originally I didn't have those triangular supports right here. I just had, if you look really closely here, well, you can't really see it, but like this inner one, like just this inner one was there without the triangular support. So Aaron, the art director, gave me feedback to make it more sturdy and also make the knives thicker, because in a game like this you're looking at something, if it's super slim, it just under the wrong angle it might just not be there, or like almost not be there. So made the knives a lot thicker in order to show them better in the game, and also reinforced with this triangular support, which just makes it look so much more sturdy. And I also added these secondary spikes here, just, you know, for 3rd level detail. So we have like 1st level detail, 2nd level detail, and 3rd level detail. 1st level detail would be like the basic shape, the overall forms, like the large forms going on. A secondary would be the smaller, and the 3rd level is basically detail like this. This topic deserves a whole video of its own. I am planning that one because a lot of people in costuming especially mess it up, but also in digital art. But anyway, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd level details. Getting back to this dude, at this point in the creation process I was running out of ways to make the Ranger star. So there is the stencil option, like this dude has here, or this one has, so it's like sprayed on. There is the classic star that is milled out of metal, like the badge kind of thing, which I used on a lot of things. And by this point I was running out of ideas and wanted to do something new, so I was like, all right, let's make it out of rivets, right? So just a bunch of rivets arranged in a crude shape of the Ranger symbol. And this is actually one of my favorite parts about this, how makeshift this makes the whole thing look. Just imagine like this kind of a star was here. Just by this tiny detail, it would direct the whole composition into, well, a different direction, if you will. So small details like this matter a lot, especially if it's like the faction logo or your character's main logo that they have going on for them. And this would be the primary logo here, by the way. This also works in the same principle as first and second level details and so on and so forth. So these decals right here, like this is secondary decal. This right here on the side of the bag, I don't know if you've even seen that. That's like tertiary decals, same as this, whatever font right there. This is secondary because you can still see it pretty fast, right? But this is primary. And also says desert ranges here in a scribbly font. Like usually I will do stuff that is a lot more less scribbly, both in my physical designs and my concept arts and other artworks. But this time I felt like this dude doesn't care about being that orderly. He just cares about not being approached from behind and about drinking tea. Realistically, this attachment for the knife here makes no sense. That would be very impractical and dangerous. But this dude doesn't care. Let's do this. Was supposed to be some sort of a probably military issue, maybe personnel in tanks or planes or something else like that, which is why there is also this X kind of seatbelt thing with a release tab pull. So this was repurposed a bit after the world ended, as you can see, by adding those shoulder spikes here to break up the silhouette, which is, by the way, a very important thing. The silhouette, especially in a game like this, where the characters are seen from afar, but also in any other game, any other movie, any LARP, anything. Any artwork you make, silhouette is very important. And this is here to make the silhouette more aggressive, because if you look at this, this whole thing, it's kind of soft, right? It's segmented, which makes it more aggressive, but just if you filled it all in with black, like the whole silhouette of this, it would be just a basic human shape, right? But these spikes right here break it up, make it more aggressive, and so do these forearm spikes, which are antlers. It says here animal horn, which is antler or horn. I don't know the difference really. So these break up the silhouette. About these spikes, in a lot of everything, you'll see spikes facing backwards, which would just make the character wearing them stab themselves. This is also rather uncomfortable and unsafe. He would be getting stuck on a lot of things with it, including his own legs and his comrades and whatever else. But this looks cool. Right, so if I did this as a costume, definitely from foam though, something soft that will not actually make me stab myself or someone else. Yeah, moving on to this, I did a curious detail in here. Safety test passed 1997-09-05. This date is neither in European nor in American format, so I was thinking like maybe it's some sort of a weird proprietary format from the corporation that designed this vest before the war or whatever. I don't know, just some kind of a tiny detail that I'm paying attention to. Same as this, by the way. This surface right here was just too blank. Right, so I was like, okay, maybe this dude is counting the times he survived or the times he stabbed someone with those horns or anything else. Same applies for the blood here. It's just, some additional detail that tells some additional story. And a very, very important detail, which you might not be even aware of right now, are these wear edges on the edges of those padded cells right here on this jacket, vest, whatever, which obviously tell the story of, hey, this is like really worn and there is this padding foam looking from the inside at you. And this is like super important. Like without this would look just way too new for a post-apocalyptic setting like Wasteland. And here you will also notice that these, not precisely, but at least to some degree, follow at anatomy. I don't want to say mirror it, because not really, but here we have kind of a biceps covering thing, and here we have kind of a forearm covering thing, so this kind of follows the anatomy very, very roughly, in the general abstract idea, and here we have kind of an oversized 4-pack abs. It of course breaks down on the chest. We don't have dedicated like chest-shaped things, so what I'm doing here is following anatomy somewhat, but not too much. Which is a thing you can do. Like I talked about following anatomy for armor and costume designs before. but you don't have to do it like 100%. You can do it here and there, and then you know, break out of it again, break into it when you feel like it. For example, here on the deltoid, on the shoulder, we also have a large shoulder pad. It just anatomically makes sense. Anyway, let's move on to the next design. This dude, like, he has a lot of spikes on the shoulders. What I did here with this torn fabric shemag kind of thing is hide the attachment points of these, because I felt like okay, it attaches to him somehow. Maybe he's wearing a harness underneath this, maybe not, I don't know. But let's just cover it up for cool looks, and also to hide the origin. It's kind of a bit of a cheat. If you don't do it too much, it's okay though. I do it sometimes. But at the same time, except it being a cheat, not to show how it's attached exactly, it also creates this sort of a material or softness contrast. Like, if you just imagine your hand here versus here, like, that's a huge different feeling, right, that you imagine. This is like hard and sharp and rusty and all that, and this is kind of soft, so this is a direct material contrast going on right here. How would this fare in real life or costuming or whatever if I would do this in a costume, then only from soft materials? Not real steel or whatever, not real aluminum either, not even real hard plastic. Like, this is just insanely dangerous, I think. But this looks cool, and this guy just doesn't want to get touched on the shoulders, right? But what this is doing most of all is really just again breaking up that silhouette and creating this very V-shaped silhouette. If you see, we have a lot of V going on here, so this is creating kind of a V. Then we also have the shemag that is creating kind of a soft V, but this cloth underneath it, which says maximum 1500 millimeter water, and then it breaks up. I thought it was like from an old water protective fabric of some sort, which is marked as such, I don't know. And also just adds visual interest, adds that third level detail. But anyway, this creates a V as well. Now we have this V on here, on this buckle right here, and we also have a V on those bags. So that is a lot of V shape going on here. So this is a very aggressive triangular shape. Even further emphasized by this 50 cal casing worn as a necklace here, hanging on the neck. By the way, also pay attention to how I chose a metal wire for this character to wear this casing on. It's two different kinds of metals, because I felt like this material contrast that is going on here needs to be resembled in a V kind of shape here. You see that these spikes and this bullet casing with this metal thingy wire also create a V shape. So not only do the spikes themselves create it, it's also reinforced by this thing in the middle. So this is the kind of thing that just happens a lot here. And we have more material contrast. Actually, there is a lot of material contrast throughout the whole series, like everywhere. But here, let's address it here. We have this sort of fabric wrapping going on here. We have some sort of a textured leather gloves here. We have this plastic-ish, scratched up kind of material on this protective vest here, which probably doesn't protect that much. So we have this plastic-ish protective material here. We have the outside, like this canvas of the vest, and we have different fabrics really, and also metals going into the mix, and also different sorts of metals. These bolts are rusted. This buckle is, well, maybe a bit rusted, but oxidized in a different way. And now yet a different sort of rust and metal going on the spikes. So material contrast. A lot of it going on here as well. We have plastic, we have metal, we have other plastic and other metal. So material contrast is something that I can highly recommend. Let's look at this one. We have a lot of like soft and hard material contrasts. We have, well, this net fabric kind of thing with fur poking through it, and right on it we have this metal thing. By the way, the whole thing with bolts being used as fasteners instead of just sewing, I actually also balanced that out as far as I can. So here we have some stitching right on this improvised holder for the snake squeeze-ins. But here we have some bolts going on, so different fastening methods. You see the stitching is breaking up here if you look at the smaller detail. So this is also a contrast between the different fastening methods. And this is one of the things that I really learned just by doing real costuming, real post-apo costuming. I found out that in a lot of cases it's a lot faster and sturdier and so on and so forth to just use bolts with washers. Not in all cases, of course. Sewing and stitching still has its purposes, but in a lot of them. Let's talk about these, the protectors on the arms here. How well would this work in real life? I think it would be a bit cumbersome, but this would hold if you tighten it tight enough with these belts here. Unlike this, which would be just horrible to wear. It would be like just wearing a dumbbell. It looks cool, but it's like wearing a dumbbell on your forearm. And of course, these spikes here are also ridiculously dangerous and cool looking. This is why they're cool looking, because they look so sharp and aggressive. And you see again what this does to the silhouette of this guy. And I tried to, by keeping these belts slim, you see those belts and all of that, I tried to just really make this, well, a more slender design, which is why this goes down to the base layer of just a short, like a jeans short or something like this, a work short maybe. It would be too cold in the post-apocalyptic Colorado, but this character doesn't care, you know, they're just used to it, I guess. And this one goes into the pants here, unlike many other designs. So this is really more fashion than practical at this point. Again, the rule of cool always wins, and I think this looks nice. Check out the complementary contrast in the color design here. Complementary colors. So there is some blue going on, a bit different kind of blue going on here, and this yellow for the artificial fur here. And I felt like artificial fur was a material I didn't use yet in this series. I mean, here I did. Later I did some more real looking, probably sheep's fur on this other jacket. So both of these are a leather jacket, by the way, if you put it in words. But this here is much more beefier looking, you know. It's more beefy around the waist. It just has a more square, less angular language going on about it. It also has no thing poking out for once. So this is more like a Mr. Nice Guy regarding the design, you know. He's less likely to stab you with something that's on his clothes. So, in some parts I just added this Team November decal here, or for example also here, just again to add some visual interest, because a lot of times you have some busy spots like detail areas and rest areas. I talked about those on my channel before, but sometimes you want to load a bit more detail, to cram a bit more detail into something, and a stencil both in digital art and costuming is a cheap and efficient way to do so. Which is why I use a lot of you know, typo stencils right here. Also on the medic here, if you actually stop and read it, 20% linen, makes dry goods only, do not bleach. Okay, this was probably some sort of a bag for some sort of dry goods before, and it has 20% linen in it. Hey, so this looks repurposed, which drives me to the point of repurposing, which is happening in almost all of these, because post-apocalyptic and repurposing go just hand in hand. Not always, but very, very often. And I actually have a separate video about repurposing as well. I've been talking about a lot of things for a long time now, so it might be time to take a break, and I might just make a part 2 of this video, because we're not even through half of this and there is just so much to talk about. And considering just how much effort I've put into these concept arts, how highly I regard those as some of my best artworks, period, I think it might make sense to just come back with another video and talk more about these. But for this video, this is it. Let me know in the comments how you like these concept arts and how you liked this video and me randomly explaining design principles and so on and so forth. And I will see you in the next episode.